Hey guys, so today I wanted to talk about a couple different things. Sorry, I'm a little sick. I don't know if it's allergies or what, but anyways, regardless. So, the main topic of today's discussion is going to be floating, and this is because of a recent experience that I had, and just a couple of tips that I wanted to give you guys, whether you are the person who has been told they have to float, or whether you are the person who is on the unit that someone has been floated to. Um, so I believe it was Friday that I worked last. Yes. So Friday, it was the last day I worked. I got to be off all weekend. Yay. And I actually ended up getting floated. Now, I was just in the hospital due to ridiculousness, and I ended up getting floated. And later on in the shift, I found out it wasn't even my turn to float. Now, the nurse had said it was my turn to float because the other two people on the unit that I was working on that night, they don't like floating. They don't like being off of the unit that they're regularly on. And I'm the new person. I'm the newest person that is on the unit. Like, I've been working there for a couple months now. I've been working at this job at the nursing home for a couple months, but it's just how it is. You get those people who they don't want to float. They just want to be with their people. And let's face it, the memory care unit at the facility I work at is one of the easiest units to work on most nights. Most nights. I will put that caveat on there because there are some nights where everything just goes crazy. But anyway, they sent me over there. They told me it was my turn to float. And then come to find out later, one of the other CNAs on the unit I got floated to actually told me, she asked me if I had signed the float book. First of all, I didn't even realize that we had a float book at this facility because from my understanding, it was the nurses who kept the log of who was floated. And there was a list that would circulate based on the schedule. That is not how it is. So later that night, after she told me that, I went to go check the float book, and the nurse had actually told me my name was on there. Thankfully, I actually went and checked myself, and I found out that my name was not in that float book. So the first thing I did was put my name in the float book because I'm not about to get floated again. First of all, I'm not supposed to get floated. Well, I wasn't supposed to be floated the first few days after my return from the hospital, just because of my health and everything. They wanted to give me a break. But, some people just don't care. And then it was just like the way that the other CNAs who I was working with on Friday night, like on my unit, were acting towards me. Like, I don't know, just certain people have attitudes and you can tell that they don't like you, and they act a certain way towards you. But then I don't know, I don't want to read too much into it, but at the same time, I don't like the way that certain people act towards me, and I try to just ignore it, but whatever. So my first tip is in regards to the float book. I feel like you have to check and make sure that your facility has a float book. Obviously, if you're part of the float pool, you would already, be in the understanding that you would get floated wherever they needed you because that's what you were hired for. However, if you are a person who, like, some facilities don't necessarily have you on assigned units. Our facility does have assigned units. My assigned unit is the memory care unit, and that's where I am supposed to be a majority of the time, unless they need me on another unit. Now, like I said, I would definitely check the float book first. Make sure that it is, in fact, your turn to float, because like I said, these other ladies that I was working with had told me that they had floated the last 2 days in a row and that it was my turn to float. And I went back and checked the float book. Neither one of their names was in the float book. So I put my name down there. So the next time before I go anywhere off my unit, I will be checking that float book before I go anywhere. And secondly, my second tip has to do with if you have somebody getting floated to your unit, because the unit that I went on was so overwhelming. I've worked over there once, and that was during my orientation, and like literally my second or third day of orientation, like clinical orientation at this job. And it was so overwhelming. Like, I had no idea who anybody was over there. You know, I'm not used to these people, and I'm not used to having to deal with, you know, dialysis patients and, you know, total dependence patients. I mean, I am, but I'm not, just because over on our unit, most of the people who are totally dependent are not kept on our units because our units are locked. So if you need a locked unit, then that's where you're going to be. However, if you're at the stage of total dependence and, you know, you can't do anything for yourself, you can't get out of bed or anything like that, you don't really need to be on a locked unit. So they move those people off of our units. We do have people who are totally dependent. Well, kind of. They're dependent for a lot of things, but they can definitely get combative, and they can definitely, you know, try to get out, so to speak. They definitely need to be on our unit, but I'm getting kind of off topic. However, you know, I was just very overwhelmed because, like I said, I do have experience dealing with all these types of patients. You know, I have worked in multiple nursing homes, and I've worked in hospital setting also. However, I didn't know any of these particular residents. They pulled me over there at like almost midnight, and you know, I go in at 10:30. So why are you pulling me at midnight to go somewhere where I went from, you know, 10 residents on the memory care unit to having like 14, 15 over on this other unit, and I don't know anything about them. And I went from having 3 get-ups to 6 get-ups, and let's see, 4 of them were Hoyers and 1 was a sit to stand. Like, that is ridiculous. I know nothing about these people. And then like the other ladies that were on the other unit that I got floated to, I think the one lady got, I think she had 2 or 3 people that she had to get out of bed, and the rest were just like dressed in beds. And the other one, all of her people were like dressed in beds except for 1 or 2. Like, what the hell? I felt very overwhelmed, and, you know, thank God that, you know, I had somebody who was willing to actually work with me, because one of the CNAs over there saw how much I was drowning. Like, I was struggling. You have no idea. I was this close to just walking out and quitting. I was drowning, and she saw like how frustrated I was. Like, I was pacing back and forth. I didn't know what to do. Like, I was getting so overwhelmed, and she came over and she's like, you know, who have you dressed? Who have you checked and changed and all that stuff? And so I gave her the list of people that I had already like dressed in bed and things like that, and, you know, checked on and changed and all of that. And she said, okay, well, why don't you go sit down and take a breather for a minute, and then, you know, in 10 or 15 minutes, then you and I will go and get so-and-so up, which was one of her people, and then you and I can come back and we will work on getting up all of your people. And thank God that she was willing to work with me. So please, if you see somebody that has been floated to your unit and you see them drowning, you see them struggling, and you see them just on the verge of losing it, please reach out and ask them if you can help them. Please do whatever you can, because I was so close. I was like this close to just walking out and quitting. And, you know, I wasn't feeling good because, like I said, I had just been in the hospital for like a week, And that was my second day back to work after being in the hospital for a week. And, you know, it was just a lot. It's a lot. And sometimes, you know, I don't know, it's just a lot. And so I'm thankful when, you know, I get floated to a unit where people actually care. You know, it could have been way worse. You know, had she not stepped in to help me, I don't think I would have been done. I don't think most of my people would have gotten up out of bed. They would have been dressed, but they probably wouldn't have been out of bed. I don't think they would have gotten, you know, into their wheelchairs, because I will not do a Hoyer without another person. I will not do a sit to stand without another person, because you're not supposed to. You're supposed to have two people at least for every mechanical lift that you do. And that's just for safety reasons, in case something goes wrong when you're operating the lift. But anyways, I just wanted to share that with you. If you guys have any other tips for like floating, or, you know, how you can help somebody who's been floated to your unit, please leave it in the comments below for somebody else if they've been in this situation where they're drowning. You know, I'm sure that you guys have probably been there yourselves. It's not a good feeling at all. You know, please, if you can help a fellow healthcare worker, help somebody. Don't just sit there and watch them drown. Please. It matters.